In this segment of basic concepts of macroeconomics, the topics which we will be understanding it are domestic product and national product, factor income and transfer income, the concept of final goods and intermediate goods, consumption goods and capital goods. However, before we make a beginning to all these concepts, it is advisable to revise the concept of domestic territory of India. Domestic territory is a geographical area or a geographical territory which is administered by the government and within which persons, goods, and capital can circulate freely. So, this is the definition which has been suggested by the UN, and most countries follow this definition of a domestic territory or economic territory. There are certain additions to this domestic territory which we learned previously, that the ships and aircrafts owned and operated by normal residents between two or more countries, fishing vessels, oil and natural gas rigs, and floating platforms operated by residents of a country in international rights and where they have exclusive rights being given for. Then the next one was embassies, consulates, and military establishments of a country located abroad. So these are also part of the domestic territory. And before we move on to the main part of the lesson, we will first do an exercise which will help us understand the concept of domestic territory in a much better way. The first question is, an Indian company in London, is it a part of domestic territory of India? The correct answer is no. The next one, Microsoft Office in India, it is a part of domestic territory of India. The next is company in India owned by Japanese. Yes, it is part of domestic territory of India. The next question is Office of Reliance Industries in New York. No, as per the UN definition, it does not fall in the domestic territory of India. The next one is branch of foreign bank in India. Yes, it is part of domestic territory of India. Indian embassy in Japan, it comes under the category of some additional things which can be part of domestic territory. So yes. The next one is branch of State Bank of India in China. The correct answer is no. It is not part of domestic territory of India. The next is Russian embassy in India. It comes under the exceptions. It is not part of domestic territory of India. Next one is Tata rented its building to Google in America. So the correct answer over here is no. It is not a part of domestic territory of India. French company in India, yes, it falls within the economic territory of India. Next one, Indian ships moving regularly between China and Japan. This is part of domestic territory of India. It comes under the additional things which we included. The 12th one is passenger plane operated by Sri Lankan Airways between Trivandrum and Muscat. The correct answer is no, it is not part of domestic territory of India. And passenger planes operated by Air India between London and New York. The correct answer is yes, it is a part of domestic territory of India. The next one is fishing fleet operated by Japanese fishermen in the Indian Ocean. So this comes under exceptions. No, it is not a part of domestic territory of India. It comes under the exclusive rights which Japanese government has got. The next one is fishing boats operated by Indian fishermen in international waters. Yes, this is a part of domestic territory of India. So having understood the concept of domestic territory, now it is time to understand a much more important concept, that is domestic product and national product. So let us now understand what is domestic product and how is it different from the second concept, that is national product. So domestic means within and national means something to do with the outside world. The key features which define a domestic product is product is there, so production activity is being done by production unit, and this production activity is located in the economic territory irrespective of the fact that whether it is being carried out by the residents or non-residents. So the key words in the definition of domestic product, there is no need to mug up, is it's a product. So some kind of production activity is being conducted by the production units in the economic territory. And definition of domestic territory and economic territory we just did a short while ago. But irrespective of the fact that it is being conducted, the work is being done by the residents or non-residents. Let's take the example of residents or non-residents. Suppose a foreign national is working for Mitsubishi, or he's working for Pepsi, or he's working for Honda. So they will be considered as part of domestic territory of the country, and the money value of domestic product which these people are contributing, that will be considered as domestic product. So here we took the example of foreign national. We can have even Indian nationals working in Indian companies. So when we talk about Indian nationals, you can talk about Birla, you can talk about Tata, you can talk about Reliance. So Indian nationals who are working in these Indian companies within the domestic territory, whatever goods and services they are producing, that will be part of domestic product. And if we change the amount of goods and services they have produced in terms of money, that will become the domestic income produced by the residents and non-residents. Non-residents become the foreign nationals and residents become the Indian nationals. Having defined domestic product, let's now understand the concept of what is national product. So national product also has the same term. Since it's product, that means it is inclusive of some kind of production activity which is performed by normal residents of the country. And normal residents, we have done earlier the definition of normal residents, that is the center of economic interest lies in the country and they're residing in the country. So again, production activities which are done by normal residents of the country. But here there is a slight change in the second part of the definition, which says that the economic territory or the economic activities performed within the economic territory and outside it. In case of domestic product, we said that the economic territory is within the country. But here we are talking about economic territory being either within the country or outside it. This is what is called as national product. So all those production activities which normal residents perform, whether within the economic territory or outside it, will be termed as national product. And if we change this national product in terms of money, it will be called as national income. Let's do a tabular distinguish between the domestic and national income. Drawing a comparison between domestic income and national income, in the first place we understand that it is the final value of goods and services in both the cases. But here it is within the domestic territory of a country, and here we are talking about the rest of the world, that is the entire world. We just now said that whether performed within the economic territory or outside it. That's what we mean by the entire world, within the economic territory or outside it. The second difference between domestic income and national income is, in case of domestic income, it considers all producers within the domestic territory, and in case of national income, it considers all producers who are normal residents of the country. The third thing is, we are talking about domestic income in a closed economy, that is, no factor income from abroad is there, net factor income from abroad is absent. But in case of national income, you have exports and imports, so it includes net factor income from abroad. Having understood the concept of domestic product and domestic income, national product and national income, let's now understand two more things, that is, what is factor income and what is transfer income. I'll give you a small example. Suppose you receive a gift from your friend, pen friend, who's staying abroad. Number one, the gift has come to you and you have performed no production activity. Okay, and apart from you not performing any production activity, you get the gift. Only you are getting the gift, not your friend is getting the gift. So it's a one-sided activity. The other situation, what I'm trying to explain is that you work in KFC to earn pocket money or whatever, and by the end of 1 week you get 1 week payment, 1 week salary. So you have worked in terms of producing goods and services, and there is an exchange. You have provided factor services and the producer has provided factor payments. So what is the difference? The first case, where you have received a gift, is a transfer income where no production activity is being performed. In the second case, where you are working, is a factor income where you have performed some kind of production activity. So the gift part is a transfer income and the earning part is a factor income. So now we are going to introduce these two terms, that is factor income and transfer income. What is factor income? Factor income is received by factors of production. In the last lesson, we have done the 4 factors of production are land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. Land gets rent, labor gets wages or salaries, capital gets interest, and entrepreneur gets profit for its contribution in the production process. So land, labor and capital and entrepreneur are providing factor services to the production units. So factor income is received by these factors of production. It is called bilateral income. Why is it called bilateral income? Because it is earned by the factors of production for contributing in the production process. That is why it is known as bilateral income. That's the two-sided income. The contribution they are making to the production process, for which they are receiving the factor incomes. The bilateral income, as I told you, is the factor income which the factors of production, that is land, labor, capital and entrepreneur, earn for contribution in the production process, and this bilateral income comes to the normal residents of the country. And it should be noted that factor incomes and factor payments are two sides of the same coin. Factor income is received by the owners of factors of production, whereas factor payment is made by the producers of goods and services. So these factor payments, as I told you, includes rent, wages, interest and profits. The second concept of factors income related to factor income is transfer income. And as we discussed, for transfer income, there's no production activity performed. It is basically a unilateral income, one-sided income. You've received a gift, but you are not, it's not necessary that you have to give a gift back. So it's one-sided income, no production activities performed in return. So since no production activities performed in return, it is not included in national income, and it can be received either within the domestic territory, or your friend, suppose she's sending you a gift from outside, or your parents are sending you, so it can be received from abroad also. Examples of transfer income include old age pension, scholarships, unemployment allowance, and pocket money. These are some examples of transfer income. So we can say that factor income is an earning concept, whereas transfer income is a receipt concept, wherein you have not performed any kind of economic activity. A new concept to understand is current transfers and capital transfers. So what are current transfers? If we take an example of current transfers, the concept will be much clearer. I can say that one example of current transfer is old age pensions. So the first thing which, when we take this example of old age pensions, we come to know that current transfers are made up out of income, and it is regular in nature. Two things which come immediately to my mind after giving example of old age pension is that it is coming out of income, and second thing, it is meant for regular purposes, it's coming out regularly, and the third thing which comes in mind, that it is made for fulfilling consumption purposes. It is meant for meeting the consumption needs of the people. So let's now discuss the features of current transfers. The first thing, as I discussed, when we said old age pension, it is made out of income. It's regular in nature. Every month a person gets it. And third thing is, it is meant for consumption purposes. The old age pension which a person is receiving, he is receiving for meeting his consumption needs. Some of the examples of current transfers include old age pension, gifts, unemployment allowance. Contrary to the concept of current transfers, we also have capital transfers. And again, we'll start with an example of capital transfers. We write down, for example, the investment grant is an example of capital transfer. So when we are talking about investment grant, the first thing which comes to our mind is it is made out of the wealth of the payer. Second thing which comes to our mind, that means it is not regular, it is irregular. And the third thing which comes to my mind when I see this investment grant, it is meant for capital formation. So I take up the example, and once I take up the example, I automatically get the points that capital transfers are made out of wealth of the payer, it is not regular, and it is meant for capital formation. So just revising the concepts of capital transfers: made out of wealth by the payer, it is not regular in nature, and the third thing is it is used for capital formation, unlike current transfers which are used for consumption purposes. Some examples of capital transfers are investment grants, then you have capital gains tax and war damages. These are all examples of capital transfers. Our next topic is to understand the end use classification of goods, under which we can classify these goods into two categories. The first one is final goods. The second one is intermediate goods. Final goods we can again classify as consumer goods and capital goods. We'll be understanding the features about final goods and intermediate goods first, and then we will be understanding what are consumer goods and how are they different from capital goods. So first we talk about what are final goods and intermediate goods, and later we'll be speaking about what are consumer goods and capital goods. Final goods are those goods which are used for consumption. If suppose I'm drinking a glass of milk, that is a final good. But with the same milk, if I'm using it for preparation of ice cream or custard, then it becomes an intermediate good. So the key word for final goods is it's used for purpose of consumption, and this consumption means that goods purchased by consumer households are for final consumption. Just as I gave you a minute ago that I'm drinking a glass of milk, that is a final good. So this money which I spend on consumption of final good, that becomes part of my consumption expenditure. So final goods can also refer to those goods which are used for the purpose of investment. For example, goods which are purchased by firms for capital formation or investment, they will be considered as final goods. Like a firm purchases a machinery, that will be a final good for the firm. So again, it depends upon the end use classification, or what is the final use of the product which is being used for. So final goods are those goods which are used for final consumption, or they are used for capital formation or investment. These are the key words which will help us to remember what are final goods. So goods purchased by firms for capital formation or investment, that part will be investment expenditure. So we can say that final expenditure is a sum of consumption expenditure and investment expenditure. As per the end use classification, the one category is final good, the second category is intermediate goods. So what are intermediate goods? Intermediate goods are those goods which are used for resale. For example, there are lots of things being sold in the canteen, so they become the intermediate good for the person who is handling the canteen, or they are used for further production, but further production, remember, in the same year. Further production in the same year, then it will be considered as an intermediate good. Talking about examples of resale, for example, milk purchased by a dairy shop is an intermediate good. But when I use that milk for drinking, it becomes the final good. The second concept of intermediate good is that it is used for further production. So when I get the milk to make sweets, it becomes an intermediate goods. So important points to be remembered for final goods and intermediate goods is as follows. So final goods are those goods which are used either for consumption or they are used for investment. And talking about intermediate goods, they are those goods which are used for resale and which are used for further production, but this should be in the same year. This is the basic skeletal difference between final goods and intermediate. Final goods can be classified into two categories. The first category is consumption goods and the second category is capital goods. However, before we go into the description of the classification of consumption goods and capital goods, just let's take a quick recap of the topic which we dwelt with earlier, that is the final goods and intermediate goods. We studied that final goods are those goods which are used for number 1, investment, and number 2, it is used for giving immediate satisfaction. First one, investment, and the second one is for consumption and which gives immediate satisfaction. Contrary to the final goods, we also studied about intermediate goods, And we said that intermediate goods are those goods which are used for resale or which are used for further production of goods and services within the same year. That is very, very important part of knowing whether a good is a final good and intermediate good. And of course the end use will determine whether a good is intermediate good or final good. Now we are moving on to the classification of final goods. The first category of final goods which we are going to talk about is consumption goods, and consumption goods can further be classified into 4 categories. The 4 categories of consumption goods: number 1 is durable use consumption goods. But before we understand what are the 4 categories of consumption goods, the simplest of definition which can help us to understand consumption goods are that these are those goods which help to satisfy human wants directly. That means upon consumption of this good, the person who is consuming the good gets satisfaction after consuming the good. This is the main thing which will help us to tell whether a good is a consumption good or a capital good. The 4 categories of consumption good which we are going to talk about, the first one is durable goods. As the name suggests, durable means it lasts for some time. So what are the durable goods in the house? The laptop is a durable good. The mobile phone is a durable good. Your car is a durable good. Your refrigerator in the house is a durable. So if we have to define what are durable goods, these are those goods which can be used again and again over a considerable period of time. The second category of consumer goods are semi-durable goods. These are those goods which can be used for a limited period of time. The best example sitting in the classroom is the uniform which you are wearing. It's a semi-durable good. You will use it for 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, then the uniform wears off or you outgrow the uniform and you have to replace it with another set of uniform. So these goods have a limited lifespan of around a year or half. The other examples you can take is the water bottle which you are carrying, any kind of mug in which you drink milk. These are all semi-durable goods. The third category of consumption goods is, children, non-durable goods. And as the name suggests, non-durable, meaning it is used up in a single act of consumption. I'm holding an ice cream in my hand. So once I finish the ice cream, I'll not get it back. Similarly, when I come to school in the morning, before coming to school, I have a sandwich or I have an egg. These are all non-durable goods. They cannot be used more than once. One act of consumption and the good is over. The fourth category, that means single act of consumption. The fourth category of the consumption good are the services or non-material goods. I am teaching you in the class. You visit a doctor, he provides you services. You take the services of a lawyer, the school bus driver who's bringing you to school. These are all intangible activities. They can neither be seen or touched, and they directly give satisfaction to the human being. So these are the 4 categories of consumption good. The first one which we said was durable goods. The second one which we spoke about are semi-durable goods, and the third one is non-durable goods. Fourth one is services or non-material goods. The second classification of final goods are the capital goods. Capital goods are those goods wherein we are using these goods for further production of goods and services. So any kind of machinery which we are using, that will come under the category of capital goods, because machines will help in further production of goods and services, which means that these machines would last for several years. And second thing is, when these machines are helping us in production of goods and services, they will continue to be intact. They will not lose their identity, except for the fact that the producer will have to spend some money on the wear and tear of machinery so that he continues to use this machinery for years to come. The next feature of capital good is that capital goods have a derived demand, and that this derived demand comes from the fact that these capital goods are used for production of goods and services which help to satisfy human requirements. The next feature of capital good is we need to identify who is using the capital good. If the capital good is used by the producer, like a refrigerator, then it is a capital good. However, if this refrigerator is being used by the household, then it becomes durable use consumer good for households. So it's simple to remember, if the end user is a producer, then it is a capital good. If the end user is a household, then it becomes a durable use consumer good. We can take another example like a sewing machine. If the sewing machine is being used in the factory, then it becomes a durable use capital good. If this sewing machine is used by a housewife to do repair work or to stitch clothes for her children, then it becomes durable use consumer good. The next thing which we must remember about capital goods are that all producer goods are not capital goods. For that, we must understand what are producer goods. Producer goods are those goods which are used for production. Those goods which are used for production. Producer goods can again be classified under two categories. The first category of producer good is single-use producer good. As the name suggests, that it is used only one time. After one time, it gets exhausted. You can't use it again. So, which are such goods which the producer is using and that is getting exhausted? Some examples of such goods are coal and wood. So, for example, you are using coal for production of power. So, when you are burning the coal gets exhausted. You can't use it again. So, it's a single-use producer good. Similarly, if wood is being used for the purpose of heating, again it is a single-use producer good, because once you use it, you cannot get it back again. The second category of producer goods are, yes, coal and wood. You can't use it repeatedly in the act of production. That's why it's called as single-use producer goods. The second category of producer goods are capital goods, and here we have already studied that these are those goods, children, which can be repeatedly used in the production process. The best examples of such capital goods are plant and machinery. We just did an example of sewing machine being used in a factory. It's a very good example because it will not get exhausted in the production process. It has derived demand and depreciation will be there, but you can use this machine for many years to come. Hence, plants and machinery is a capital good because it can be used repeatedly in the production process without the plant and machinery losing their identity during the process of production.